The greatest thing from Quebec since Celine Dion and GSP.
A pair of siblings.
A couple of stellar young men.
Two brothers.
These two young men.
Two siblings.
The hard-hitting pair represent Canada.
Welcome to Thinkin Bros. My name is Chris.
And I'm Alex.
We're your favorite corner store philosophers trying to figure out life one conundrum at a time. And now we're back in our natural habitat. And we're discussing part 2 of Passions Within Reason. Now, as you can see, we're back. Yeah, I have the black shirt back. So we're good.
It's not tropical
Everything's
season
fine
anymore.
now. You can close your eyes and tell yourself everything's fine.
I seem to
Despite
remember...
the crashing markets.
Well, he doesn't know anything
yeah, I don't know
about that.
about markets. I don't know.
I seem to remember a couple of weeks ago you invoking new Chris.
New Chris.
Yeah, with the new hair. Once you cut your hair, you said, the black shirt era is over.
What do you mean a few weeks ago? That's 56 weeks ago.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm level 3. Didn't you hear? I went through the phases. I went through. Okay, it's fine. I don't need the black shirts anymore. I can choose, and then I'm like, I went back to the Steve Jobs era where it's one less decision on it, and I look hecking good in it. So anyway, interesting. Yeah, good book.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
The last part seemed like some parts were more yappy, I feel like.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say this because I think I can summarize it pretty much in a few sentences.
Go ahead.
So, optimal choices are not the rational choice. Within
Sometimes.
Within what is optimal, at the very least for society, which is pretty much how people evolve. The calculation considers rationality and emotion. And emotion it's not some byproduct that you might feel or you must feel stoic in the face of. Emotion itself shifts the value of decisions by making them, some elements of it, more salient right now or in the future.
Yeah, but I mean, that's part 1. Or what we're calling part 1, in the first half of the book.
Yeah. Well, we chose to be part 1. Also, we did a pretty good division, right? Because he said, okay, here's everything I'm going to argue for.
Yeah, it was actually, yeah. And in the second part, I feel like it was just discussion of elements of it and examples of it.
Yeah, a lot of evidence. And it shows how, through these two theories of, reputation and also physiological, I guess it's safe to say, right? Physiological signs that are recognizable by people at some cost, of course, that you are indeed someone who feels guilty when you lie. You are indeed something like that. Through those things, you make an emotional choice more profitable in the long term because you establish yourself as someone who's trustworthy.
Sure.
Anyway, I'm guessing anyone tuning in into part 2 doesn't necessarily understand what I mean. So let's reintroduce commitment problems just quickly. And essentially, commitment problems are things that cannot necessarily be settled with certainty in the moment, and they happen a lot in life. An easy one is marriages. Like you're making a promise of living under the same household and combining income and taking a lot of risk on someone who you don't know for certain will uphold their end of the promise, for example, by remaining faithful and keeping up whatever promise they say under the altar. Is that how it works? And the commitment part and where emotion comes in is if you see they have the physiological signs and the reputation, for example, because these are the two angles from which you can kind of have that confirmation, which is not rational, but it's solidified statistically in a way that they are this kind of person who doesn't lie, for example. So if
I think the signs are rational. The emotion is not rational, but those signs are a way in which you can know the other person is not rational.
Yeah, but yeah. So through this repetition of emotion and predisposition to feel these emotions, you can kind of rationally weed out
the rational from the irrational people. And here, irrational is good.
Yeah, irrational is good. And one of the examples, another example, for example, okay, well, that's not going up for me, is the, what's it, assured mutual destruction thing with the nuclear stuff.
Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
The acronym is MAD. It's pretty
Yeah,
easy
MAD.
to.
Yeah. The thing about that is, it is not a rational choice. It's a commitment problem. Once for example, someone launches the nukes from a country, right? We're not going to name the country. No, we're not going to name the country. It's Russia, right? So, and the people receiving them, it's not a rational choice to send back the nukes, because you're just approaching the world toward total destruction. But for the, what's the word? Deterrence, right? For your, in your position, for you to own these nukes and for it to be deterrent to the other country.
For you to be known as the kind of person that would send nukes if
Exactly.
they were to send
you
nukes.
must be irrational. So you must show in a way that you're ready to not make the rational choice. And this is where rationality loses. You must be, in a way, impulsive, vengeful, and these things make you predisposed to solve these commitment problems, which aren't really rationally solved. Because if everyone has the power to absolutely destroy other countries, and everyone's perfectly rational, you can attack first and know that they're not going to send back the nuke, which, you know, exactly, like, just doesn't make MAD work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the reason it works is because humans are irrational. Okay. Do you want to guide us through part 2 in a way? Again, this is going to be kind of a review of the evidence, and it's solid, you know, has some examples. There's one thing I didn't necessarily understand. I didn't think...
Understand the place of in the book?
No. Just didn't understand the principle. I think it was another thing, but the thing is, what I'm clinging towards right now is, I know he's an economist, so he definitely knows better than me, but is a thing where people who are placed higher in companies get proportionally paid less.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because they're paying for their position in the company. Otherwise, the underlings would have no incentive to stay, because if their contribution was proportional to their pay and everyone in the company was above them, no one would stay in any company. Kind of. See, yeah, I mean, kind of made it all right. That's an explanation.
Well, okay. The next chapter we needed to discuss after last week was chapter 6, which is called Telltale Clues, which just discusses physiological signs of emotions in people. And I mean, this is one of the ones that felt like yapping. It's just like, okay, there are signs. It shows like the 2 drawings that Darwin makes of a dog in attack mode and a dog in friendly mode, and how it's sort of diametrically opposed, and every single element of one posture is the opposite of the other posture, and how there's transfer to humans, you know, and in facial expressions, in our cheeks becoming red, in our gestures with our hands, in heartbeat and perspiration. Those are signs that we feel emotions, which is like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's just enforcing the point that anything for anything to have value evolutionarily, it must be costly to fake. So, you know, professional liars can practice themselves to adopt certain emotions. I'm sure professional fighters, they're the best at practicing to not show pain. Because, you know, you see some of these shots, the guy has never felt such a pain in their life, and their face remains neutral. And there are certain parts of the face, you know, which are statistically, well, what I mean by statistically is a lesser percent of the population has the ability to consciously move those muscles of the face. So there are certain expressions, again, what they isn't necessarily relevant, because I'm sure there's like one muscle in every expression that is much harder than the others to manipulate. For example, I don't know, when it's fear, the way you accentuate your eyebrows, or not accentuate, but whatever, like place them in when you angle them, that's a hard thing to replicate. But for example, you don't always have to open your mouth and breathe in, because that you can consciously control. If you're awaiting a jump scare in a horror movie, you can control the breathing in, for example, because just keep your mouth closed, right? But the eyebrows might raise when you're not thinking about them. And this is, I guess, the cost to fake that is it can be increasingly hard, but just a repeated practice. Like if you want to fool someone who's good at reading these signs, which again, it's also costly to find the people who are good at faking it, in the sense that, yeah, you have to, read these signs and get good at it for a while. You have to practice it probably in front of a mirror or something. Or a reflective surface, like the walls of a German toilet.
Airport toilet.
Yeah, airport toilet, for example.
Well, yeah. But also in that chapter, he mentions that people are above chance at guessing when they're being deceived or not. Although that is done in an experiment where people are shown video recordings. And I feel like when you tell people, look at this video, they're either lying or, telling the truth. You have to discern if they are. You're sort of in that sort of mindset already, and you're looking for it. And that's not mentioned in the book. Whereas in real life, I feel like the rates of detection would be lower because people are just, depending on who you are and where you live and what your opinion of humanity is, I think most people are just like, most people I know are predisposed to believe people.
I think there are two things about that. First of all, in important decisions, you are going to be the mind frame you are at the video. For example, business partners, right?
Yeah.
Where you're awaiting a lie, right? You're expecting it. So you're looking for these signs, which is fine, right? Number two, one of the things he says for sure, because he also kind of diminishes this point. One of the things he says for sure is that we are pretty good at weeding these people out when we know them well. And this is usually when we make such commitments. For example, make a small risk in a business partnership, it pays off. Make a bigger risk, and then you merge or something, right? Same thing with marriage, right? It's not out of the blue. So even if you're bad at first date reading people, it is fine in the long run. I'll believe that. But as a one interaction thing, I do think it approaches more in my professional opinion, I do think it's more of a normal distribution. If you're not looking for it and it's not repeated exposure, I doubt people are good. I think it's like deliberate practice, right? At some point, if you have been socialized enough, maybe there are certain signs that you can't say what it is, but they make you feel unsettled, right? You talk to some people and you're just like, yeah, man, have you ever talked to overly charismatic people that just look like charlatans? Well, not like, just feel.
Yeah,
they feel like charlatans. And there's something there, but...
And I definitely think that it develops with time. Like I still am naive, probably. I was more naive when I was even younger. And I think this is one of those things that it's way too situation dependent to like even be trying to say anything is just like, whatever, dude. I feel like you say like, oh, people are good at detecting deception. Like it depends on how well you know the person. Are you expecting lies? Is this a high stakes situation, or are they just telling you, like, I don't know, you're not looking desperately for an excuse for what they did. You just like want to know the reason. Then if they don't tell the truth, they definitely can get away with it. It
might be like the point about trash talking. Like, okay, let's experimentally determine if trash talking is good. Remember that episode? And they, the Pong game, and over the computer, somebody wrote like, I am going to destroy you at this game.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, oh, it made their performance better, so you should not trash talk. I think it's a little bit like that, but I also think because of the universality of emotion and how much we experience it every day, people do naturally, they can recognize a bad liar. Let's just say that, right? Like, yeah, you'll know something's wrong when,
yeah. I've definitely had like, I had a person pop in mind when you said whatever you said, and it's just like an eerie feeling of
there's something evil is lurking, right?
Yeah, something evil's afoot.
Yeah, I guess that's something like that. Yeah,
but I don't know. It's just like I sort of go along for the social like lubrication, but then I go away and I'm like, that person lied and for no reason too. It's just
speaking
like
of social lubrication, Absolute Vodka, our new sponsor. Unfortunately, no, this is a lie, but it's okay.
Relative vodka.
One day. Relative is vodka. Okay, yeah. Chapter 7 or something?
Yeah, chapter 7, I didn't even write down. Probably because it
Any
was.
title?
No, I didn't even write down the title.
Okay.
Chapter 8 is challenging behaviorism, which, again, I'm not like, not seeing like a
Predicting-
huge relevance.
7 is predicting cooperation. Oh, it's these
Prisoner dilemmas
no,
where they meet.
it was pretty cool. It gave some statistics on how often people cooperate. But then again, it's a lot about manipulating the situation. And at the very least, I think the point of the chapter was with increasing communication times, people got better at, I guess, first of all, predicting a liar, a defector. Second of all, they got more cooperative, right? So if you give them no communication and then make them play a prisoner's dilemma, a lot of defection, right? But still most cooperation. Make them talk for 30 minutes or 10 minutes, increasing rates of cooperation. Make them talk for 30 minutes and give them the right to make promises about cooperating. Cooperation rates at around 90%, right?
Right, and
Something like that.
a big theme in this book is like the opposition of the self-interested model and the commitment model.
Yeah.
And a lot of these experiments, prisoner dilemma experiments, even if they make people talk, there's always an emphasis on like, not always, some experiments, and the point of those experiments is exactly that, but most experiments, your identity will not be revealed, right? So there's no tit for tat long-term advantage to cooperating or whatever. People just make promises, and then against their rational best choice of defecting and getting the best outcome, in full knowledge that they will not repeat the prisoner's dilemma with that person, right? Because as we know, repeated prisoner's dilemma, the optimal strategy is cooperate. Well, whenever the other person cooperates, and then you both get the optimal outcome. But in these single instance prisoner dilemmas, people still cooperate in the irrational manner. So this is one instance that cannot be explained by the self-interested account of human behavior.
Exactly. I haven't read The Selfish Gene, but I feel like that's exactly what it would say, right? That we evolved in not a community-oriented selection, group selection, but individual selection. And there are pretty good arguments for that, but also against it. Becoming moral. And again, every time he mentions defectors teaching their kids to be opportunistic when it heavily favors them, but cooperative, like what is that? It's like he's taking too much of an economist approach, right?
It doesn't happen often. What he talks about like 3 times.
No, exactly. But every time it seems misplaced because no, he makes it like people have already read. Every single person has already read his book, and like every defector is like, you know what? I'm gonna make my son a cooperator who only defects is in one-shot commitment problem situations that are far away from home, so it can't affect his like. What is that?
I just
a lot of hypotheticals, but
cooperator son or defector daughter.
I'm gonna take the cooperator. So becoming moral. Any? No.
What is that? Chapter 8, 7?
Yeah, it's 8.
8.
Yeah, already.
No.
This is okay. There's one thing.
There's just like some interesting sub chapters throughout the book, but it's just discussion on the commitment model.
Yeah, there's this one thing, Sauce Bernays, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know that he disproved Skinner's followers that stated that
everything is just learned.
Yeah, no, but these associations that are learned. Look, this is what I got from it. I don't know. I guess you're making another point, but these associations must happen close to one another. Whereas he once ate a sauce.
He, not the author, right?
It's somebody else. There was like an argument made. Got sick, and then got sick the same night, for example, and then associated the sickness with the sauce, but actually it was a stomach flu, does that even
Whatever
exist?
that
By
is.
the way, yeah, does that exist? And
Just show our ignorance on full view.
and then he could never eat the sauce again, even though the sauce didn't even cause the sickness. So he kind of just showed that it doesn't have to happen right after a cue, right? So
guess.
these Skinner's,
These
whatever,
Skinners.
what is it? Learned behavior type stuff. Is that a
Behaviorists.
technical term? I don't know, but yeah, behaviors. Another thing is,
Well, a big point of discussion in there. Also, I didn't know how old this book was.
yeah, 1988. Right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Well,
It seems recent. You know, when
yeah,
you
it
read
feels more recent. Later chapters, he talks about like, the way I made this book is by using recent evidence. This only came out in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah, and also every time he quotes people in the experiments, you know it's in the 1980s, because every time it's like
They're doing like
"Ah,
a student fell on the ground in a bus, and we saw if people helped.
yeah, that's weird as well.
But the leading paradigm, I guess, for some time was behaviorism, and one thing he mentions, which I found interesting, that disproves the sort of that everything is learned, as strict behaviorists would like that to be, is that when you
I see. I
Was
see what
it
you're gonna say.
rats, I think it's rats. Yeah,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you teach rats to learn an association. Okay, so the experiment goes like this: they're drinking water, and then a tone rings and a light flashes, and then they get shocked after that tone, right? So they're drinking water, and they learn that when they hear that tone and see the light, they need to stop drinking because they're going to receive a shock if they're drinking at that time, and that's learned, no problem. And even as Chris said, on longer delays, even if the stimulus and the shock is delayed. And also, if you
Drink sweetened water and then
not sweet, well, like some taste in the water,
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't matter. You give some taste in the water, and in the same way, you give electrical stimulation, which induces nausea to rats. Then that association can be formed, and whenever the water tastes changes, then they'll stop drinking water because they know the nausea will be induced. But if you reverse the stimuli and consequence, so that
the
when
sound causes the nausea.
when the sound and the visual stimuli is there, then nausea is caused, or vice versa. When the water taste changes and then the rats get a shock, they don't learn that association at all, because the point is that some things are hardwired. Notably, in this situation, the association between taste and nausea, and like your stomach reacting to taste, something you ingested, and physical pain being associated with some noise, like something. If something hits you, then it's gonna make a noise and it's gonna like disturb your visual field and everything. But if you like switch them up, these associations are not sort of hardwired to be learned.
Yeah,
So that strict behaviorism is for sure not true.
Yeah, so here it's about even the potential of making an association, because it's just an illogical environmental association of, a light flashing and your stomach hurting.
Yeah, which is cool, and I like that part. But what is it doing in the book, like exactly?
I think I might be completely off again. Because
Again.
I didn't. Yeah, because I didn't take notes. But I think the point was here is that for psychopaths, the reason they don't act morally is because they don't even have the predisposition to feel guilty. Is that what it is? To feel guilty when they do something bad. So you're never going to be
So
trustworthy.
emotion
something
never
like
comes
that.
into the equation of decision making, and
Exactly. So it's not. So yeah, it's not that they make. It's not that they do bad things and then don't feel guilty after, and that reinforces or something. It's just while making the decision of doing something bad, the potential to feel guilt isn't there. So there's nothing that's moved to a more salient place of not committing an immoral act. So they just do it. Something like that.
okay.
I didn't work it out necessarily in my mind, but what I was going to say here is just this, okay? Excuse me, my name is could you tell me what your name is? Just this, like I knew it was 1988 because you ask that today, everyone, like, I don't know, you're gonna get hit
So
or
I
something.
have a boyfriend. and
Or
they keep
yeah, or
walking.
someone's gonna start filming you or something. Or excuse me, I wonder if you could give me a dime. My wallet has been stolen. Like, okay, now we're back to 1988. So that's pretty much chapter 8, becoming moral.
That was an excerpt from experiments where people walked up to random people and
Yeah,
asked
we're
them.
gonna get there. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I'm just reading chapter 8 here. It is the clearly psychopathic, marginally psychopathic, clearly non-psychopathic. And one of the things, I mean, for all the physiology fans, I guess, is that I think they made the experiments with these groups, so clearly psychopathic, non-psychopathic, and potentially psychopathic, and they recorded
And clearly non-psychopathic?
clearly psychopathic, marginally psychopathic, clearly non-psychopathic. And they recorded their vital signs and the galvanic skin,
Sweating, yeah, response.
sweating. And they subjected them to pictures of naked women and violent scenes. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I remember pictures of naked women, but I don't remember the other one.
Then there's like polygraph tests and blood vessel constriction. And essentially, one of the big things is that the clearly psychopathic people, okay, didn't.
They're your people.
Yeah, well, they experienced the other two, so they could fool the polygraph, I guess, and the blood constriction or whatever. But the one that is really, really impossible to fake is the galvanic skin response, where they didn't. I guess they didn't sweat, or were they aroused or were they not aroused? Like I think the point is here.
They were not
There
aroused,
was no arousal because they don't have the potential to feel the emotion. Therefore, there's no deterrent for them to commit bad acts. Something
I'm
like
not
that.
sure. I'm not sure about the point of like the one which is really impossible to fake, but
Well,
yeah, the one one that is visible is not present in them.
Yeah. Anyway, some like psychopaths physiologically react differently to some cues.
I think the point with the galvanic skin response was that
Yeah.
that was an indicator of feeling directly,
And they didn't.
and they didn't
Feel
show
it.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we infer that they didn't feel it.
yeah. So fairness.
Yeah. And then the next two chapters are examples of emotions and how the commitment model works around them. So fairness first and then love. So I guess a claim of self-interest model advocates is that fairness is like a made-up term. I think probably he takes like an extreme point of view and takes it
Strawmanning them.
sort of strawmanning them, yeah. Like
Or
taking one
what is
person.
it? Steel man.
Well, not steel-manning them, clearly not, but
Oh, okay. No. I forgot.
But I guess strawmanning the position by taking one person that's very extreme and taking his word as
it's probably another term completely in philosophy.
probably because it's not exactly a straw man of like one.
Yeah. Strawman.
Well, no, it is a straw man of the argument. If you take one thing that you're like, I can defeat that
Yeah. Okay.
that position.
Okay.
So okay, so the way he explains fairness, the way he actually defines fairness, which takes a while, is by setting up a definition of reservation prices. So
Oh yeah. He also says it's actually really simple.
yeah.
At the beginning, like, oh,
my
these
really
philosophers,
simple definition of
these philosophers have been struggling with it, but this is actually really simple. Let me put it in economical terms.
So in a transaction, let's say Alex is transactioning with Chris. I'm a seller and he's a buyer. We each have our reservation price for this notebook. My reservation price is the lowest price I'm willing to sell it at, which is $5. And Chris's reservation price is the highest he's willing to pay for it, which is $6, let's say. And the surplus created by our transaction is my reservation price minus his reservation price. So it'll be or his minus mine, sorry. So it would be 6 minus 5. So $1. And then if I sell the notebook at $5.50 to him, that's a fair transaction. Because the surplus which we create is divided equally between us. So that I get 50 cents and he gets 50 cents of our good transaction. You know, he paid more for it than the minimum I was willing to take, but he also paid less than the maximum he was willing to buy it for, and we both profit equally because we split it 50-50. Now, if I sold it at, you know, $5.50, then I would be taking $5.90, sorry. Then I would be taking 90 cents of the surplus and he would only be taking 10. So he would be disadvantaged and that would be an unfair transaction. This seems like a very like idealized, and he does like say it multiple times where like we don't know reservation prices of people in transactions, but like it's a very like idealized.
That's only like half the nuance, right? The other half is fairness isn't always about buying prices. Like it's about like moral decisions and, you know, equal division of resources and I don't know, a bunch of other stuff.
Sometimes it's an employer taking on someone, and it's the pay versus what the employee gives them, and sometimes it's
an economist's
simplification of transactions
of fairness, right? But which, again, it's cool for our purposes.
But if we could have a metric in, let's say, a marriage that's like a parallel to the money thing for selling my notebook, that seems like a good definition of fairness. Is like splitting the difference of our reservation prices in two is fair.
Yeah, the quote. What is it? You're an 8 chasing 10s and being chased by 6s. Anyway.
Yeah, and so the point is, as opposed to what some self-interest modelists would say, fairness does exist and affects people and guides their decision making, so that Chris may refuse my offer to sell him my notebook at $5.95 because it's an unfair bargain and he knows it, even though he would be willing to pay $6 for it, and it's still like advantageous to him because he gets the notebook for less than what he would be willing to pay. But it's unfair because I profit more, and people do get influenced by this sense of fairness and do make decisions that are irrational in this sense. Irrational because the price he has to pay for not taking the deal is he doesn't get the notebook, which presumably he needs, right?
Yeah, and I think the way to see that, first of all, I'm going to say the study later, because the study is really sets it up in the way where you actually understand that, oh wow, people are really ready to make the irrational choice for it. But usually I'm saying that if I'm saying my reservation price is 6, I'm saying, okay, this notebook is worth, in my life, it's worth exactly a trade-off of $6. So let's say half an hour of work of mine, right? So in that sense, when he gives me the notebook, even if I buy it for $5.95, I'm still profiting 5 cents off of it because the notebook was worth $6 to me in my life.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it happens.
So in every situation, you should just take it. So even if it's a bad deal for you, people should just take deals, but they don't. So the argument is fairness exists.
Yeah. And the best study of that is there's one person who is setting the split for $10 and the other who can accept it with the ultimatum, right? Accept the ultimatum or refuse it. The two cannot communicate. It's anonymous. They're not going to repeat the interaction, let's say.
Yeah.
And the rate at which people refuse these transactions in the position of the person who's been given the ultimatum displays this fairness in play. Because ultimately, if you go to the experiment, you're given the ultimatum. If the guy splits the money $9.99 for him and 1 cent, well, especially in 1988, you'd be walking out with enough money to buy a lemonade and a burger, right? So
For $9.99?
no, for 1 cent.
Okay, yeah.
So you should accept it.
You should definitely accept.
But people refuse up to pretty exuberant amounts. Thank you. Now, I was thinking, as you know, as a proud defector, how much would I push them in the position of the person who's giving the ultimatum? I settled on, like, before I saw the statistics of refusal, I settled on $7. I would have said 7.3.
That's pretty much what comes out, right?
Yeah,
It's like
the optimal thing where
something.
people stop saying defect.
Yeah. We'll stop accepting.
Exactly. So, and again, there are even people who refuse to walk out of the experiment with $4 and give the other person $6. So their net loss is $4 just to enforce this fairness, right? I mean, there are people. They're not that frequent. I can maybe find the statistics exactly. Oh, and the biggest thing it's in opposition with is the rational choice model. Does it equate to the self-interest model?
No, I guess it just applies to like different. I mean, it's about different things.
Yeah, so you can see the stark difference in
No, don't make that a thing. No.
how the rational choice model is inaccurate at predicting the result of these things, because in every situation but the situation where the person giving the ultimatum takes $10 and leaves the other person $0, they could rationally be profiting off of the experiment.
They should in that frame of mind.
Yeah. So a rational person would always, like, in the position of the person who's being given the ultimatum, should always accept the deal. But few do. So percentage of player 1 demands greater than 90%. Okay, no, that's not very interesting statistics. But that's also not very intelligent to demand more than 90%, because I feel like you'd have the intuition that the person is going to say no for them walking out with $1. But anyway, 11% of people demanded that. Average percentage demanded by player 1 in accepted proposals. 61%. Okay, so it was the average of accepted was $6.
$6,
versus $4. Maybe I would have pushed it. Average percentage demanded by player 1 in rejected proposals, 85%. It's pretty crazy. Percentage of total proposals rejected by player 2, only 20%.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're pushing it. They're pushing it, man. You don't need $9. That can almost buy you a house. Percentage of proposed 50-50 splits, 25%. So even in the position 1, who, you could be...
Mother Teresa.
I want
to
to meet the people who took less than 50 in the position of the person giving the ultimatum. Giving.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because there is probably one, right? Average percentage of total demanded by player 1, 67. Okay, so that's what they demanded, but it was actually optimally 61 from the perspective of the player 2. They weren't willing to walk out with less than $4. Then a bunch of variations that, do they reveal anything interesting?
Well, according to the person that put them in the book, yeah.
Yeah. Mr.
I don't have notes on them,
Frank.
though, so if you want to talk about them.
I could. Minimum accepted offers and ultimatum bargaining. Total to be divided, $10. Average amount offered by player 1, $4.76. That's a subsequent... $4.76?
Is there a...
Oh, okay, so this was the one that was kind of graded. So they gave them choices with increments of 50 cents. So they couldn't just set a price like that. It had to be with increments. So maybe player 1 was afraid to be taken.
Yeah, but is there another modification? Like, do they talk before, after? Are there repeated measures? Or is there 3 people? Because one of them had 3 people, and then...
There's some nuance here that I can't read right now. Is it? I didn't. No. But
I can't read right now.
I didn't find it very interesting. From the same list, they asked player 2 to indicate the least favorable. No, but that's, again, they're not communicating here. Simple experiments to explore the motivation for making fair offers. Yeah, look, I don't know. 50-50 offers at 81%. Probably communication here, right? Average minimum accepted by player 2, 259. Okay. Great. Wages and profits. Yeah, fairness and status. So here he explains that theoretically, okay, here is the thing. It was in the same realm that bothered me when he said, technically, as your skill level improves the company's earnings by $1, your salary should improve by $1. No. How does that even work?
Because the company has to keep some for
for
expansion
it to even function, for the lights to be on in the office, that cannot happen.
Well, no. If the company is already functioning, then every additional thing you produce.
I see what you're saying, but it's just not how it works. It can't be. I always thought, like, it's the same thing with soccer players, right? If Ronaldo's making 70 million a year, he's probably making
the team or whatever
700 million a year.
Yeah.
And as it augments, it should be proportional, but not linear. Well, no, linear is proportional.
Linear, but not
equivocal. Therefore, there's this principle where, because no one wants to be of a lower status in a company, the increments at which salary increases with increasing in the hierarchy get lower and lower. I said it perfectly.
Yeah, those three companies, that's crazy. Like that graph.
Yeah, that graph. I mean, it's
just go to the biggest company, have the lowest status, man. What does it matter?
Yeah, with the highest pay. Ego, man, ego. And again, it's emotion, right? It's a commit. It's not a commitment problem, but it's the same principle.
You can understand what I'm saying, but they're not understanding without seeing that graph. But
yeah, and explaining it would be two burdens. They're different companies.
Buy the book, read the book, go to page
180
to find out what we're talking about.
Exactly. So it's hopefully in the Amazon preview. It is not. So, here's an interesting nuance to that. The more people interact within a company, the more the people placed higher must sacrifice of their salary, because they're essentially buying a higher place in the company. And the more you interact, the more profit, ego-wise, you get from being in a higher position. People like markets like real estate, who are essentially, independent agents who pretty much never interact with people in the office, for the dollar of increased profit for the company, their salary is increasing by 70 cents. Automobile sounds bad. Automobile sales.
Say it the way you want to say it. We'll all laugh.
Automobiles sales. Because they're kind of working in the same location, but they don't necessarily interact, they still, for $1 of increase in their company, of profit of their company due to their productivity, they're gaining 24 cents on that dollar. Okay.
Finally, chemists.
Yeah, chemists. So research chemists who heavily interact and collaborate together to be higher placed. It costs the highest price. So by increasing by $1, they're gaining only 9 cents on that dollar in their pay.
Yeah.
So 91% of their productivity is just going on them being called senior chemist or something like that. Which is, it's crazy. These people got egos.
Yeah, but I don't think it's about that either. I mean, you don't choose to be, like, if you are a chemist, I am a chemist.
It's just how it works, right?
It's just how it works. It's not like I'm going to be a...
No. Yeah, people aren't like, you know what? I'm willing to sacrifice 91 cents of my dollar of profit.
People just want to be chemists, and then if they're good at it, then they're good at it.
Yes, but if you are a 16-year-old who wants to progress the most in salary, go to things where people don't collaborate. Yeah, so because in 10 years, the higher you're going to be placed is actually going to be more... not more proportional. Anyway, you get it. You're going to be paid more the more you progress.
The more.
More, not just more, because that's everywhere. Hopefully, you get
A higher proportion of your work will be beneficial to your pay.
A higher proportion of your increase in productivity will enter in your pay and not in your status.
Yeah.
There you go. Chapter 10, love.
Yeah. And he first starts talking about love and about marriage by talking about renter,
The number rating system.
a renter looking for a place to
A
live.
garage. Okay.
So, what?
No, a garage. I said a garage.
So they're looking for a garage. No.
Oh, that right.
Yeah, which makes sense to me.
No, it definitely makes sense. It
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
makes sense.
So someone is looking for an apartment to settle into, and that cozily settle into, and that search and settling on an option is analogous to marriage in the sense that you're looking for an apartment, you have incomplete information, you don't have infinite time, you're going to look around, explore the options, not invest infinite resources looking into every single option, and eventually come out with a choice which you, certainly know is not the best choice. But still no is the best choice because it's not worth investing more resources into looking further and further, because that could be an infinite process, right? And well, the same thing applies in choosing a mate, I guess, is you explore, you settle eventually on one person who's not the best person in the world, but with whom you have to settle with. With whom? With who you have to settle with.
No, I think with whom was good. So then, I'm not sure if this is a central point, but then as you live with that person or in that apartment, other options come up. And statistically, they do have a pretty good chance of, well, not a pretty good chance, it's still low, but it's a possibility, especially, for the amount of time it lasts, of running into a better choice. So solving the commitment problem here is important because in an optimal kind of free-flowing market, every tenant and every house landlord would be absolutely free, because as soon as, for example, if no lease is signed, as soon as the young guy is making way too much noise in the apartment, he evicts him, gets a new tenant. Or as soon as you find a better priced penthouse by the beach, you move out there on a day's notice. It's the same thing with relationships. Now, leases are signed for a year. It's a kind of suboptimal choice, but it's an okay one in the sense that, you still have to settle for something, and that something usually looks like a lease. And for relationships, it is marriage that people try to kind of systematically solve these problems by making it costly to defect in a way. And in an ideal world, the ideal systematic fix would be to only make marriages hard to dissolve in situations where people, like one of them is a defector and therefore would lose a lot by risking the necessity of a divorce. Whereas in an ideal world, again, people whose relationship just isn't working out, it would be really, really easy to just leave it. In the same way, if a tenant and a landlord both found better options at the same time, or just weren't satisfied with what they got, they could just break the lease. But I guess that is possible. I don't know how costly that would be. I'm guessing the tenant would have to, the landlord would have to find a new apartment in an off season, not where usually leases end, and it would be hard. But still, like, it's costly, but it's a compromise. No, it's a compromise people must come to. Now, the actual solution, the optimal solution for both parties for that problem, are these signs of moral predispositions. Because when you're going into the marriage, love can really be the best solution.
The commitment device is the emotion, is not the sign.
Is not the
sign of the emotion.
Exactly. So again, so the state and everyone is trying, to that's why I said systematically mimic a commitment device, but the actual good commitment device are the emotions that humans are allegedly good at recognizing. But divorce rates are up. You know, any day I could just say your divorce rates are up, and I'm probably right, and it's really sad.
Yeah, love. I mean, specifically, this chapter is about love, and in marriages, the emotion in question is love. So let's say in apartments, the commitment device is a lease. Then in marriages, the commitment device, which is going to prevent you from leaving at a whim, is love. So
well, that's not the parallel though, because the lease is the equivalent of the marriage contract. But the added thing that should actually lead to optimal choices is another thing that's not going to make you leave your wife when she's ill or something, or when a better choice comes around.
No, but the point is the marriage contract is not like the lease. Like, you can just leave.
Yeah, but it's costly in the same way. I'm sure you can probably, there are some clauses in the lease that
you have to pay it. I mean, you just have to pay it until
if you just leave and stop paying it, you're losing you're losing last and deposit, right? I mean, I'm sure that's what it is. You're losing last and deposit, which is costly in the same way that breaking up a marriage is costly. But like,
okay, yeah,
there is a superior commitment device in a tenant versus landlord relationship. In a sense,
love.
like, not love, but I don't know, fairness, honesty. Like, it's just another emotion. But the parallel here is with the suboptimal. Anyway, you get it.
Yeah. And so the point is, love makes you stay even when
irrationally.
Irrationally. So love makes you stay even when rationally you're incentivized to break that bond, break that trust. That is what I said. James Bond.
I know.
So let's say you have a tempting offer of, cheating, extramarital affair. At that moment, love and the guilt that you would feel for doing that is gonna
weigh on
the side of not doing it. But rationally, if there was no chance of them finding out, if there was blah blah blah, you should do it because it makes you feel better right now, etc., etc. I think we talked more about this in part 1 too.
Yeah, and here being irrationally, emotionally inclined to feel bad about it, makes you the better human, like the more optimal.
Yeah, same thing when your partner becomes ill, you're incentivized by love. I don't like talking about love in this like
economist
frame of mind, but whatever. Yeah, you stay, you get through it with them, and that's profitable for the relationship.
Well, I would rather leave, but emotion. Okay, let me stay.
Yeah. Darn.
At the end of this chapter, it's crazy how when you start paying attention, things start linking in the world. Because at the end of this chapter, he talks about the modular brain, which I've been talking so much about. And it's kind of a less developed theory of what Neil Levy's been saying, because he wrote his paper 30 years later. But same principle. Neil Levy says they're unintelligent, but that's a big difference. But he's saying there are intelligent modules in your brain that act under your conscious awareness. Some proof of that is subconscious priming. So I
don't think he says intelligent. He just says like language or non-language.
I'm pretty sure he says intelligent because anyway, okay, so there's a central conscious language module in patients with
split brain.
Yeah, split brain patients to stop seizures anyway. There are parts of the brain that cannot communicate together. So you might flash a picture of scissors in the right eye. No, because the left hemisphere is the language producing, right? So
it's not right eye, left eye. It's like visual
field.
Visual field.
Yeah. So flash a scissors in the left visual field. Your language module cannot say
because it's in the left hemisphere.
Yeah.
And the image of the scissors comes in on the right. Since there's no communication, like conscious communication between the two, you can't say you saw scissors. But when given the choice between scissors, rock, paper.
Yeah, rock and paper.
Which was not it, but you choose scissors.
Yeah, you inexplicably choose scissors. Yeah, so anyway, some demonstrations that there are things acting in your brain but beyond your conscious awareness, and they're actually also pretty good. And how did that relate to love? I forgot.
Yeah.
Just maybe it's rational. I don't know how the practice often seems to serve its purpose. Oh, okay. I think it enforced the power of
Love.
Thematic
Perception test.
perception tests, where people tell a story about an image and it actually reveals more about their intentions and their character traits than if they were asked about their character traits, which is really cool. Like, it was strongly statistically proven that when people are asked about some specific things, like their fairness or, oh, it was this. It was the best predictor of a successful relationship was not seeing the relationship as kind of tit for tat. So I do favor here, I keep mental score, they must return the favor, right? So I do dishes 3 times a week, and if they don't do it back 3 times a week, we got a problem, right? And I think people weren't that good at evaluating how much they have this predisposition to think about this, and a bunch of other things, like I think fairness, I don't know, so just some factors. TATs, thematic apperception tests, are better at predicting their personality than this.
Remains to see how that held up in the past 40 years, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
30 years.
So, and it's the same way you discover this predisposition to think about these things in loving relationships by asking them to tell a story about an image. And I think that was the point. Anyway, but it definitely works. So, so basically big points. People are bad at evaluating nuanced traits about themselves, but they can reveal these traits when telling stories. So, what do they say? The story tells more about the author than the character. True. They do say that.
I guess I don't remember.
I don't remember if they said that.
No, I don't remember if that's the quote.
Yeah, that is the quote. Yeah, to the nearest decimal. So that's love. So again, yeah, in a bunch of factors. Again, 1988, but among a bunch of factors, the best predictor of
Long-term
marital well-being,
but also life success, right? He talks about life success.
I think that he does push it. Is not seeing ironically, not seeing relationships as transactional.
Yeah,
and and emotion can make it clear. So yes, you're, let's say, investing 20 minutes in washing the dishes, but that is a purely self-contained choice because the profit is the activity itself, because you know that it is a payoff emotionally to do something good for the other person.
Okay, yeah.
So it's still transactional, but like with the emotion added.
I think whenever anyone says something about irrationality, you can always just say like, yeah, but it's rational in this way.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like he spins it as well. But I think the big thing he introduces that I didn't understand for a bunch of years is emotion is part of the rational equation. Like you have to convert some units, but it's still part of the calculation of what is the optimal behavior. And it's not just I'm making $10. It's I'm making $5, but this person trusts me more, and my reputation is increasing, and my face blushes less when I'm lying or something. No, blushes more. Sorry, the optimal thing is to blush more when you're lying. So yeah, just rosy cheeks and all. 11, human decency. You have anything more to say?
Oh, human decency, I have nothing. It's just a bunch of examples. But yeah, that's the thing. This chapter is pretty like it's not united, I feel. It's a lot of different things being said, but it's just a big point being made about human decency being real and not everyone being selfish and real heroic acts being like existing.
Yeah, so it proves a bunch of studies that people are ready to self-sacrificially help others when no one's necessarily watching. I mean, the person being saved, and they're not related to them, which does make sense in the self-preserving evolutionary theory. Doesn't make sense in the kin selection theory.
If it's a stranger.
If it is a stranger. So something's going on with, I guess, group selection or like commitment model. Something beyond this is going on, which is explained with this commitment model. And the way to put it rationally and in opportunity, like, kind of, once every calculation is made and we're at the end of the life, it's opportunistic in the sense that now that you know this, it's actually profitable to act suboptimally in the moment for you because these
In
emotions,
what way?
Well, I don't know.
At the end of a life.
Tip in faraway cities, because if you do it 10 times a year from now, when someone asks you in an interview this moral question, you're going to be honestly able to say yes, and then they're going to take you for the best job of your life.
What if they don't?
Well, the point is, there is a reputation, which, okay, it doesn't affect because it's a faraway city, and then there are these physiological signs, and by being the more honest person who just, I don't know, smiles. Did you see Pursuit of Happiness? I think he does he does a bunch of good stuff. So anyway,
I just like the 4 points in the last chapter, which
yes, you want me to hand you the book?
Yeah, because you can't read right now.
I can't read right now. One sec, I'll find it for you. I didn't find it. Okay, there it is. Okay. Yeah, we can kind of end on this.
Yeah. So to conclude, he sort of ends the chapter. This is ends the book with this chapter and these points, saying, "I believe that the evidence we have seen firmly justifies these 4 conclusions," which I hope we've alluded to at length in our discussion. So number 1, people often do not behave as predicted by the self-interest model. We vote, we return lost wallets, we do not disconnect from catalytic converters on our cars. We donate bone marrow, we give money to charity, we bear costs in the name of fairness, we act selflessly in love relationships. Some of us even risk our lives to save perfect strangers. Traditional attempts to rationalize such behaviors have fallen short. Kin selection is clearly important, and yet many beneficiaries are completely unrelated to their benefactors. Reciprocal altruism and tit for tat are also important, but cannot explain cooperation in prisoner's dilemma that happen only once, or in which defection simply cannot be detected. Many of the exchanges we have seen are of precisely this sort, and each party knows it. Yeah?
Yeah, that for sure is clear. That is clear from our discussion, yeah.
And the we vote part was...
Yeah, you waste time on something that's probably not going to matter.
I mean, that's rationally not going to matter, right? If you do not go to vote, nothing is going to change.
Another approach to what if everyone does this?
Yeah.
And it's funny because he says, well, if no one did it, your vote definitely wouldn't matter.
Yeah, like if no one that was going to vote for the person I was going to vote for goes to vote, that person is not going to win anyway.
And close decisions are usually by the tens of thousands of votes.
Yeah.
So you're still not going to matter.
Yeah. So, point 2. The reason for irrational behavior is not always that people miscalculate. To be sure, we often do make mistakes. I hear that First National is lending at 9%, but forget and pay 10% at Citizens Federal. You know when you do that?
I hate when I do that.
Or perhaps I am unable to calculate the that the tax laws favor buying over renting. If someone pointed out these mistakes to me, I would almost surely change my behavior. Yet many of the most salient examples of irrational behavior do not involve mistakes at all. The husband who devoutly remains with his wife despite her lingering illness could instead leave her for someone healthy. In many cases,
That's the most mathematical sentence of all. It's disgusting.
in many cases, it would be strongly in his material interest to do so. But he stays, and not because he is unable to make the relevant calculation. It is the same with people who reject one-sided offers. Most people know perfectly well that to accept would increase their wealth, yet they reject with not the slightest trace of regret. That's just beautiful. Emotion is often an important motive for irrational behavior. Abundant evidence suggests that emotional forces lie behind our failure to maximize. Developmental psychologists tell us that moral behavior emerges hand in hand with the maturation of specific emotional competencies. The psychopath fails not because of an inability to calculate self-interest, but because of an inability to empathize, a fundamental lack of emotional conditionability. Thematic apperception tests reveal that affection, not concern for material self-interest, is the motivating force behind successful intimate relationships. We know that the way people feel has a strong effect on the likelihood of their performing good deeds, such as helping a stranger or returning a lost wallet. And experiments consistently reveal that cooperators react with outrage when one of their partners defects in a prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah, that's the thing we didn't mention. People actually really strongly reacted to these $10 splits and talking to people for 30 minutes and then discovering, when they weren't protected from discovering that someone defected, for example. Like, they were really, really butthurt. So,
I would for sure be really mad.
yeah.
I mean, even if it doesn't matter, I mean, I can imagine myself like in that one exchange situation where I look the person in the eyes and I'm like, I am gonna cooperate, and they're like, I am gonna cooperate, and then they defect. Just like,
yeah,
oh, dude.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be mad at, because I would be kind of sharpening my social skills in that sense. I would be looking at them, taking the guilty before innocent approach and trying to, weed them out to see if I'm going to defect or not. If they convince me that they're sincere, I'm going to take the chance. And if they defect, I'm just going to learn something about the world.
I'd probably be very sad for them that a person like that exists,
Yeah, because it's not maximally profitable to be a defector. Did you read point 4?
I lost the page.
Okay.
Reflections. Point 4. Being motivated by emotion is often an advantage. There are many problems that purely self-interested persons simply cannot solve. They cannot make themselves more attractive for ventures that require trust. They cannot threaten credibly to walk away from unfair transactions that will increase their wealth. Nor can they deter aggressors when retaliation would be prohibitively costly. Nor can they make credible commitments in intimate relationships. All of these problems are important. We have seen that people who are known to have specific emotional predispositions are often able to solve them. The problems require that we tie our hands, and the emotions have just the desired effect. We have also seen a variety of plausible means whereby others might discern our predispositions. It is not necessary that we be able to judge everyone's characters with complete accuracy. The commitment model requires only that we be able to make reasonably accurate judgments concerning people we know very well. Most of us believe we have this capacity. If we are right, it follows that noble human motives and the costly behaviors they often summon will not only survive the ruthless pressures of the material world, but even be nourished by them. Yes,
that's a really good summary.
Yeah. So overall, the book really, I think, sneaks up on you. Like, I read it, and I'm like, I agree with everything, and everything goes fine. And at the end, I'm like, these are really good points, and especially when surrounded by, like, well, you for one, and by people in philosophy and in the sciences who all think so rationally and really have no place for emotion in their account for human behavior. This is really cool. This is a really well done account of human behavior that involves emotion and where emotion plays even a central part.
Yeah. I think it's really, despite the economical angle, it's a really beautiful thing to say that, look, through repeated exposure, there are types of people that just through the fact that people are irrational and don't necessarily seek maximal self-profit and do have feelings, you can get to know someone and, I don't know, carry $1 million and give them a knife and make them walk behind you without ever looking back. And although they have the capacity and you're at sea, on a faraway yacht and no one's ever going to discover what they do to you, right? You can have that trust, that trust that although it is possible for them at no cost and at a large benefit to kill you and hide the body, Dexter style, they're not going to do it off of this, paper thin, in a way, in the sense that like it is still physically possible and even profitable in the world for them to do so, with this paper thin protection of emotion that actually holds so strong in everyday life.
I mean, you say it's nice to know, like,
no, it's like because to me, this is a revelation. Just in this, like, by framing it through the commitment problem, and it also really reinforces what Aristotle's been saying for quite a while now. That
I saw him last week. He's still saying it.
You are what you repeatedly do, but not just in the sense that you make it a habit. In the sense that it just shapes you, and you now become the person. Like, okay, let's decide that I will act honestly from now on, and I will never ever lie. And just through that decision, you are shaped so much more than just not lying in any individual instance. You become more, recognizable as an honest person. Your reputation increases. Your facial signs of being an honest person increase. Your whatever, right? All these things are really cool. Now that was my thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, figured it out. Rating. 3, 2, 1,
6.
9. What do you mean? I mean, it was.
There's a bunch of parts that we like.
No, we skipped over them.
There are like 2 parts that we don't know why they're in the book. Where one you have a theory for.
They're just part of the path. He still associates them with something. It just wasn't encoded in our minds why we need to get there. Sometimes we probably discuss the end point of an argument, of part of the argument, without going into the specific examples he gave.
Okay, it's not 6, it's 7.
Okay, so average out 8. And you're going to have to go into the commitment problem of my honesty that I'll actually put 8 and not 9.
That's the thing, though. I don't care.
Okay, well. Very well. So I'm the emotional one now. Okay, well. Yeah. Good book.
Yeah, good book.
Good book. I do think it's one of those that could be aptly summarized in 10 pages and you'd get everything you need from it.
Probably.
Like if someone really understood the book.
Yeah, like the last part and all the proof is unnecessary in like exposing the person to the argument.
Yeah. Well, so if I give you the evaluation of like, okay, believe me, this evidence is good. I'll give you 2-3 examples in those 10 pages. Mm-hmm. But here's the point. And to give you the point, you don't need all the evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for listening. This has been the Thinking Bros. Go to thinkingbros.com for more information or contact us at thinkingbros@gmail.com. And I've been Chris.
Alex, bye.